Howdy.
It's great to have a Texan heading up the Department of Energy.
Thank you.
I want to thank you, first of all, for your thoughtful written report. I found it personally refreshing, actually, that we had a comprehensive report that sought to recognize the security challenges facing us, and recognize the breakthroughs that we need to make for advancement, but also kept in mind that we are supposed to be, as the chair said, responsibly use the taxpayer's dollar. And while we do want to make sure DOE employees' morale is high, I think we should also make sure that the taxpayers' morale is high. And with $22 trillion hanging around their neck, I think most of us realize that their morale is not as high as it should be. I represent, of course, the 27th District of Texas. So first of all, I want to thank you for the work and helping with the Port of Corpus Christi. Seeing the first crude shipment come out of the United States in a while out of that port was really great for the United States as we're making this transition to an energy-dominant nation, which you've been so key in. I'm also home to the South Texas Project Electric Generating Station, and I know we're committed to Americans' leadership in nuclear energy to help deliver clean, reliable power to the people of Texas and across the country. Much of America's existing fleet of reactors is aging, with many of their nuclear plants nearing the end of their 40-year license. The Department of Energy is researching ways to promote the longevity and safety of nuclear plants through its light water reactor sustainability program. The program works with universities and companies like STP, South Texas Project, on research. Could you provide an update on the work being conducted through the LWRS program?
You know which one that is? You know. Scott, if I could, let's take that one for the record and get you the proper information and give it to you and the rest of the committee members in writing.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Your written report touched on rare earth minerals, and you know, there's a lot of talk about alternative forms of energy having an all-above approach. Could you discuss what DOE might be doing in terms of rare earth minerals? I mean, we know China controls 70% of them. So as we look to alternative forms of energy, as we're becoming a energy-dominant nation that's finally independent in energy, we don't want to trade that for dependence on rare earth minerals. Also, of course, rare earth minerals have, as your report mentions, extreme national security, military applications, and those sorts of things.
And I think that's very, very succinct that I want to stop and draw a line right there and say that that's looking backwards. And some of the innovation and technology that's going on at the department at this particular point in time may shed some light on that dealing with rare earth minerals that are controlled by maybe some countries that don't necessarily have our best interest in mind may not be as big a challenge as what we thought it was 12 months ago. And part of that reason is because of the research that's going on at our national labs. And I'm going to, again, ask Paul to kind of share with you just because he's fresh out of seeing some of this, and it has to do with battery storage. And the progress, Ms. Fletcher, that's being made on battery storage is really fascinating. And I've always said that battery storage is the holy grail. If we're able to get to that point where we can use our renewables, solar and wind in particular, to power these batteries that have long-time storage. And what we're finding now is that the elements that are being used to create some of these batteries are not rare earth minerals, and they're elements that we have right here in the United States. So we're going to be in control of our future substantially more on the battery storage. Paul, if you just kind of give them a little glimpse of what's going on here, and I think that's pretty exciting stuff.
So a couple of examples. Obviously, the complex is just to a large degree a very large R&D business. And so in this particular area, for example, in batteries that are not lithium-ion, beyond lithium-ion batteries that not only have tremendous improvements in performance at 3 to 5 times, but are made out of elements, as the Secretary said, that we don't have to source it from places that we have more of a challenge. The second thing, as an example, that we did with the support of this committee is the recycling battery announcement that we made at Argonne National Lab, where we announced the first research for recycling batteries. So the materials that you were talking about that have to be potentially sourced from other places in the world, we're looking at, with all these batteries being used in the economy now, how we could reuse those rather than needing to source that from other locations.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
You mentioned on the electric grid, and I think in 2017 you produced or the DOE, I should say, produced a report on listing recommendations that we should do to prepare for an EMP attack. Do you know of any progress that's been made?
Yes, sir. A substantial amount of it. In April of this year, DOE issued a $35 million cybersecurity for energy delivery systems research research call to the federally funded research and development centers. And they're working exactly on what you're talking about there, the resiliency, the reliability of the nation's energy infrastructure. And they're looking at a host of different ways to, we actually stood up an office that we refer to as CSER Cybersecurity and the emergency response that's headed up. And so, again, thank you for the funding of that. I think it's very timely. And the previous that I talked about, this $35 million is going to be used for testing that can be used to verify and validate operational technology, equipment, software. And there was also a funding opportunity announcement that was released in the month prior, in March, to establish a cyber manufacturing institute. And that one's co-managed by our CSER office and EERE to mitigate cybersecurity threats. And so there's a lot of movement in that space. The DOE, our national labs, and our private sector partners are all engaged, I think, in a very constructive way to send the message to our citizens, to those that operate our electric and power systems, that we're doing everything possible to protect them against both cyber threats, physical threats, and national or natural disasters as well. I know Florida, I think your governor's about to do an announcement on infrastructure resiliency and what have you. Our two states have, time to time we get more natural disasters than we'd really like to have, but how we build that infrastructure and how we develop that resiliency of the grid is very, very important. Not just because of the cyber side of this that 10 years ago that wasn't a problem. It is today.
Thank you very much, Mr. McNerney.